I absolutely adore the Punch-Out series. It's a weird obsession of mine, and I can easily see why people find it weird to have as a favorite series of Nintendo's. The games are all pretty short and simple, not to mention how all of them except Super copy over fighters, and therefore content. They appear very basic gameplay-wise and lack much real story, but these games have so much appeal for me. The puzzle-based boss fights absolutely never get old, and even though the gameplay can seem basic, these games are absolutely tough as nails, and a blast with the challenge they provide. And while there isn't a true linear story to it, oh boy do the characters and charm make up for that. Almost every single fighter from these games is so memorable, even outside the game. There's plenty who probably haven't played these games, but still know who Glass Joe and King Hippo are. They are all so unique and charming with every aspect of themselves, especially in the Wii remake. These 13 are absolutely brimming with personality in this perfect game. But despite how charming the series is, it's not too hard to see why it doesn't get as much attention from Nintendo. I mean, after a polished up remake of the classic with even more content that takes the gameplay to its limit, what can you really do? Well, the main gimmick of Punch-Out is that bosses feel a lot more like a puzzle, with analyzing them and finding a solution. So, all you need to do is get new puzzles, aka boxers, for a new game to work well. It's not like there's no new ideas you can go with for new boxers. There's plenty, so it's weird that there hasn't been a true sequel to Punch-Out since Wii. So today, I want to pitch my idea for my dream sequel to Punch-Out Wii. A game that takes the tight gameplay that Wii gave us, and also gives us a whole new cast of 13 fighters. Some from Wii now revamped into a new experience, some from Super getting their time to shine, and some brand new personalities. Though, to start off the basic pitch, I don't just want to do what every other game has done and just reboot Lil Mac's story again. Lil Mac got his story the best he could in Punch-Out Wii, and I would really feel weird having that all just retconned for a new game. So I actually want to attempt to fit this into some kind of lore for these games, and expand the world and characters of Punch-Out. This probably sounds ridiculous, but hopefully my idea can convince you. Lil Mac's story is already told, so instead of looking to that or anything after, we're going to look back into the past of one fan favorite character, Doc Lewis. I want this theoretical game to follow Doc's past as a heavyweight boxer before he became a trainer. This would work well for many reasons, the first being that Doc is just an interesting character and allows for just a lot of fun dialogue. He'd probably just be speaking on his own due to most fighters speaking their own language, but that combined with him possibly speaking to the English-speaking fighters would be plenty fun. The second is that going into the past allows us to get a new look at some of the existing fighters, while they were in their prime or different enough to be interesting. And the last bit is one we'll see as we get into the video, but Doc's past with a certain fighter would be very interesting to flesh out. And also of note, some of these may not technically work due to the timeline and character ages, but we'll roll with it for now. Gameplay would be the exact same as Wii, no changes made to it. I did debate taking some notes from Super and making it more freeform by adding in the Super meter, but I decided Wii's system feels the most fluid and satisfying. Don't fix what isn't broken after all. And with all the basics of this sequel out of the way, let's get into the specifics with our cast of 13, starting with
Gabby J!
Yay!
Replacing Glass Joe would be Gabby J from Super Punch-Out, the old man from Paris. He works perfectly as a very pathetic and easy tutorial boss for this new game, while still giving the opportunity for a very different feel than Glass Joe. Starting with his personality, It's gonna be changed up a ton, like I will be doing for a few of the fighters from Super. In this new game, he will contrast Glass Joe's cowardly optimism with just kinda being done with boxing. At his old age, he just wants to retire, but keeps going at the behest of his student Glass Joe, who will actually be in the corner with him and there for his intro. His whole demeanor will just be one of absolutely not caring about the fight or boxing anymore. He just wants to go home, and might even just stand there and ask Doc to hit him and give him a star. His fighting style would be a mirror of Glass Joe's, with a lot of jabs and a couple of delayed hooks. The thing that would set Gabby J apart is his signature move carried from Super, his cheering. Occasionally, when at low health, Gabby can step back and give a half-hearted cheer for himself, and restore some of his health. But much like Glass Joe's taunt, this leaves him right open for a KO punch. Gabby would serve the same purpose of Glass Joe, just to teach brand new players that he can't go in punching wildly, and instead have to wait to dodge and counterpunch. Gabby's slow wind-ups due to his lack of effort allow for a perfect training space for this, and hopefully an entertaining character.
Rick Ruger.
The next in the lineup is one of two characters I was very excited to remake, the Bruiser Brothers. I will be honest, Nick and Rick together are kind of boring in Super. Nick on his own would make it for an intimidating final boss, but with Rick there too, they just end up feeling really samey due to their similar fighting style, and Super not being able to show their personalities as much as we could with its fighters. So I want to build upon the personalities they show to make them very interesting fighters, starting with Rick, the lesser of the brothers. For them, I kept their more fun attitude, but I decided to twist their ego into something different. Rick is now someone who doesn't have an ego for their own accomplishments, but instead thinks they're the hottest stuff in town because their brother is a world circuit fighter. Before the match and in intermissions, Rick will boast about being the brother of such a legendary fighter, and how it means he can crush any opponent. But here, his ego cannot match his skill, as he is very inexperienced compared to his brother. He can't get far in his boxing career no matter how much he wants to, and this gets him quite angry, which will play into this fight. Rick's main challenge comes from not any skill in fighting, but instead his own inexperience and nervousness once in the ring. Rick has no clue what he's doing or what he should do, and it gives him a very interesting style of fighting, full of delays and a few switch-ups. Much like Gabby is, Rick is meant to be more of a tutorial boss in contender mode, here to let the player get used to the idea of punches with different rhythms and timings, along with the trickery other fighters will go heavy on. Rick is very easy to tell, as to make sure these weird delays feel like a learning experience and not anything too difficult yet. Though, as you go into the fight, that rage I mentioned before shows, as he gets angry if Doc begins to get knockdowns on him. He'll begin to throw heavy punches with long windups, along with the signature Bruiser elbow drop. Along with ramping up to give a real challenge for this fight, it also is a mini lesson on larger moves, and you gotta make sure to dodge those. But eventually, Rick goes down, and Doc moves on to the next fighter. As the third fighter in the minor circuit, we have our first character hailing from the original roster, King Hippo. Or well, not really. This is in the past before Hippo became the king, but he still has his dreams of boxing, so instead we have Prince Hippo. They stand much differently to how they do in NES and Wii. They don't have their kingly physique yet, and instead are a much more nimble fighter. They still have the same general personality, as it just works, and well, Hippo's hard to work with personality-wise, due to them not really being able to speak at all. Though Doc trying to speak with them could give some fun interactions. But their animal-like qualities work into their fighting style, as Hippo in this game is an absolute monster. They aren't the slugger they are in Wii or NES. Hippo here is a lot more agile, and will come with quick hits from many directions. I would compare their style to something between Dawn and Aaron, without either of their gimmicks. Hippo would act as the last of the more tutorial fighters, with their style testing Doc's different kinds of dodges and blocks, as Hippo will attack from any direction he can. Their special move will also work into their style, as Hippo will step back for a moment and give 3 roars, as he either jumps to the side, crouches down, or raises his hands. After this, he'll come in with attacks as strong as the Hippo squeeze, but they have to be dodged in the way he telegraphed them. Since it is a tutorial, you can still just do it from watching, but it is much easier with the telegraphs. But eventually, Hippo will go down with normal KOs this time, and Doc will move on to the title bout. Now, for one of my favorite looks into the past, we have General Kaiser. Before he got old and could be beaten by actual children, Kaiser was much tougher and held the minor circuit belt unchallenged. The man was a menace inside and outside the ring, as a decorated military officer back home when he wasn't fighting. Kaiser is going to be the first opponent to try to be genuinely intimidating. Gabby J is himself,
Yay!
Rick was obviously a joke, and Hippo tried but was still goofy. Kaiser is a genuine threat, and will be very imposing with his personality and background. Kaiser has changed a bit personality-wise. He still has the arrogance and ego to him with his lines, but now it's no longer accompanied by his freakouts and possible PTSD. Kaiser now stands as someone who thinks they are infinitely mightier than you, and they can prove it too. Kaiser will look much younger with more impressive hair, along with medals on his overalls. Kaiser is just going to be mostly a solid boxer without too many gimmicks. They will retain their cuckoo clock theming, with much quicker wind-ups and variations on his punches, like his title defense fight in Wii. Kaiser will throw constant jabs, hooks, and a few uppercuts. They will be a test of everything the player has learned up to this point. Waiting and countering from Gabby J, learning timing from Rick, and various ways to dodge from Hippo. Kaiser will bring all of this together in a no gimmicks fight. The closest he'll have to a gimmick is his special move, the Blitz. In this attack, Kaiser will go back and move to one of 3 spots for rushing forward with a jumping downward strike on Doc. These will be devastating attacks, and he will do 1 for each of the positions in random order. You'll need to quickly react to which spot he's going for and not be there. But you can counter this too. The timing is tricky, but if you nail an uppercut as Kaiser comes down, he'll go down instantly. All you have to do is stand up to this military man, and eventually he'll fall and Doc will claim the minor circuit.
Dragon Chan! Huh? Huh?
Starring the major circuit is another character returning from Super, Dragon Shan, who brings back their unique fighting style. They serve as a decent character to take the spot of Piston Hondo, while being a unique experience in their own right. Dragon Shan will carry over their look from Super, though with a bit of work in the personality department. Building off what I got from Dragon Shan personally, in this game they have quite the cocky show-off personality. They come to the ring ready to show their fancy martial arts and this idea that they are some hero from an old kung fu movie. Chan will try to act like a wise master, but that quickly fades to show their hot-headed and brash personality. In terms of actual fighting, Dragon Chan will carry over a lot of their moves from Super, although tuned up with better timing and feel to fit more with Wii's style of boxing. He'll use a lot of jabs and a few far-reaching hooks, all with some changed up timing to make them less predictable. His healing move is also completely gone, as to let that be Gabby J's thing.
Yay!
But the main appeal is once again one of the biggest examples of the WVBA allowing anything: his kicks. He brings back both moves from Super. He can either do a flurry of 3 kicks which must be dodged in the opposite way, or he can do his instant KO kick. The second one would be tuned up, now being faster with the windup, as it doesn't feel annoying and is a bit trickier to dodge like the bull charge in Wii. Dragon Chan is already a great fighter. I'm surprised never returned, so him coming back would just be a blast. But eventually Doc would manage to defeat him as well, and move on to someone new. And now we have the first of our new fighters that I was terrified to try to make. There are still a few places Punch-Out hasn't gone for fighter ideas, so I hope to capitalize on those gold mines for ideas. Starting with the whole continent they never touched, Australia. Hailing from the Outback of Australia, we have Outback Occa. Occa is a rugged survivor of the Australian wilderness, being shown to fight the horrifying wildlife of the area with nothing but his boxing gloves and trusty boomerang before going into the WBBA. Akka is a strange man in the ring, being just a bit crazed and too excited to be there for a fight. They've got plenty of weird mannerisms from their survival days, and not much sanity. Still not as insane as Aaron or Ryan, but they are getting close. Unlike Aaron, though, they are a generally fun-loving guy and are nice to Doc, even if they show it in weird ways. In the ring itself, Akka's fighting style is also a bit unorthodox. They spend a lot of time focusing on survival, so they know how to keep themselves safe. They keep up an excellent guard and don't give long to hit them. And in that time, you also have to hit just the right area, which varies randomly between attacks. You have to think fast with this man in order to get in any kind of damage on them. Other than this though, Akka is a pretty normal fighter with no crazy delays and some clean moves. Oh well, except for bringing a weapon to the ring. Akka will bring their trusty boomerang to the ring, and it makes for quite the move. Later into the fight, they can pull the weapon out and throw it at Doc. This is simple to dodge with a duck, but the challenge comes from the fact that it will keep circling around, and it will be accompanied by a flurry of hits. You have to keep track of both Akka and the right times to dodge the boomerang. But if you can survive, the boomerang will hit Akka and give you a free beatdown. If you can manage to learn the wild man's tricks, they'll go down easily. Up next is another new fighter to the WVBA, hailing from the Lone Star State of Texas, Texas Red. Texas Red is a classic cowboy with a tall hat, pants, and some boots with spurs. They hail from the Wild West of Texas, as said before, doing classic cowboy things with catching criminals and outlaws. But as they finish up one job, they see a WVBA poster with an important bit cut off, and to them it looks like a picture of Doc with the word wanted written on it. To them, Doc is a criminal they just gotta bring in. Of course, this is through a standard boxing match because this is Punch-Out logic we're working with. Red is a generally chill guy though, going with the cool cowboy persona you might expect. They act cool and intimidating towards Doc, but they can also be an eccentric Texas goofball with their weird mannerisms and phrases. They look like a classic Western hero, but really they're having a good time with this fight. Now, as for what they bring to combat, Red has some tricks up his sleeve. His main challenge comes not from any tricky delays or defense, it's the sheer speed you must match with them. Their tails are very short, and you have to react quickly to get out of the way of their harsh jabs and hooks. Red provides sort of another test for future fighters, on really perfecting the player's reaction time. If you can just be the quicker draw, you can endure the onslaught that the cowboy brings. And for a special move, Red brings a Texas flair with bringing a whole lasso to the ring. The cowboy will step back and twirl the lasso in the air. It would be similar to the Kaiser Blitz from here, picking one of Doc's 3 possible positions, but it would be a bit harder to read and quicker than Kaiser. If Red hits you with this, he'll rush forward with a mean uppercut that'll take half your health, and you have to dodge a few quick attacks while tied up in the lasso and unable to fight back before he takes it back for another go at it. This is a mean move that can keep you completely unable to win if you can't learn it. But if you keep your quick footing, Red will go down and Doc can move on.
Get him, Cindy Long!
Moving back into our classic boxers, we have one of the biggest faces of the Punch-Out series, Bald Bull. Much younger and near the start of their boxing career, they've been a promising young boxer with only a bit of a rage issue. They will be a rising star within the WVBA, fighting alongside Doc till this matchup. This will be whiplash for most long-term fans of Punch-Out, as Bald Bull in this first fight is actually pretty happy to be there. Ready to fight, but not as the wild man they know from the other games. They're kind to Doc as they begin the fight, but still fight fiercely to earn their title at Bull. The fight itself is pretty similar to other Bald Bull fights, with its classic rolling punches and uppercuts, though they are made a bit easier to dodge with their timings being less weird than they usually are. They'll only pull it out near the end of the fight, but they also have their signature bull charge ready to use. I wish I could say more for Bald Bull's fighting here, but this fight with them is pretty standard for reasons we'll see later in the video. But eventually, you can bring the bull down and move on.
Muscle!
And, acting as the champ of the major circuit, is someone I was excited to bring back, Masked Muscle. The pro wrestler hailing from Mexico, where they had quite the audience to call their own. But when they saw their own posters being painted over with those of the WVBA, he had to step in and cut out his own slice of the pie. They still have their signature look from Super, and personality-wise are mostly expanded from what is already there. Masked Muscle loves to be the only one in the spotlight, and they will make sure no one else gets it but them. They're really just a complete jerk to Doc, but hopefully eccentric enough that they can be someone you love to hate. Inside the ring, they bring absolute chaos with their past of wrestling and their affinity for cheating. Masked Muscle brings some heavy-hitting punches that give some obvious tells with how flashy they are. But Muscle also brings in so many illegal moves now, as they will throw in much faster strikes with elbows and a smack to the side of Doc's face. Between these various moves, you'll have to stay on your toes to react to both his slower heavy hitters and his quick strikes in between. But that's not all they bring to the ring, because there's even more cheating with Muscle. He also brings back his signature headbutt, able to be pulled out for a devastating blow. Just like Super, it's also pretty tricky to dodge, but much more fair here. And at the apex of Muscle's cheating is their signature move of just spitting into your eyes. Muscle will spray the mist at Doc, and if it hits, you'll be unable to strike back and also disoriented, as he throws out a flurry of punches. But if you manage to survive the onslaught, you get an extra long beatdown on them. The mist in this game is actually somewhat of a risk-reward when you get good at it. You can gain a lot of damage, but it could also doom you if you lose your footing during the onslaught. But, even with all his tricks, Muscle will eventually go down, and Doc will claim the major circuit title.
Hi, Carlo!
Standing as the guard of the world circuit is another veteran from Super, the martial arts master of Hoi Corlo. Corlo is a true martial arts master despite his age, as his backstory shows him easily mopping the floor with dozens of them, including Dragon Chan without a single scratch. Corlo acts in a very calm and controlled manner, not showing a single bit of aggression against Doc, instead spouting advice for both boxing and life, as if he was Doc's own mentor. The closest he gets to aggression is being a little cheeky at times, with joking around and not taking the match too seriously. And his level of calm certainty is backed up by his fighting in the ring. Corlew makes for a much different challenge than the previous fighters will have been. Just like Super, he fights mostly with his cane, now with a mix between heavy-hitting swings and very quick jabs. He's a tricky fighter, as on larger attacks, he'll dodge if you attempt to punch, and counter with a quick jab, which has a smaller window to hit. Corlew is tricky to get hits in on, as the man is good at dodging more easy hits. Instead, you have to play risky with Corlew, and get him in either smaller punches for less damage, or play ahead of him and get your punches early to catch him off guard. His overall timing is also tricky due to his use of a staff. Corlew has two special moves he can use. The first is just a very heavy strike, where he takes his staff and swings around to kick you in the face with it. You won't get hits for dodging this one, as Corlew lands right back on his feet. But if you punch early, you can spin Corlew back and off his balance, and get a ton of hits on him. His second move is taken from Super, where he'll wave his staff either up or down. Although here, instead of being an arbitrary pattern, he'll do this multiple times and give a flurry of swings for up waves and jabs for down waves, to block and duck, respectively. This will give only a tiny beatdown if you can get the last jab, though. But eventually, Doc can defeat Hoy and move on to the next fighter.
Hey, Darrow!
Next up is another fighter returning from Super, the fabulous Hiki Kagero. In this game, Hiki is a young man who loves his beauty and anything stylish, from his love of dance and ballet to his makeup and hair, and after seeing a WVBA match, apparently boxing. Hiki is one of the returning Super Punch-Up fighters to actually get a small design change, to reflect his new love of beauty, as he goes more wild with his face makeup, being more in the vein of kabuki makeup. Hiki here is eccentric as all heck, with always making sure his makeup is perfect in the corner, flaunting his perfect hair, and other ways to show off in his strange and off-putting way. Hiki is much more traditional compared to some of the previous fighters. He'll just throw ordinary hooks and jabs, much like his original fight, without anything too flashy to them. His combos will be slowed down to be dodged individually, but still be there as much more dangerous moves for them to pull out. Hiki's craziness comes in their two specials they can pull out. Their first is their hair combo, which is changed up just a bit. It now acts as another telegraph and react move like Hippo's, but much faster, so you have to pay attention to the telegraphs in order to stand a chance against this move. But more interesting is his Mirage dance. Different from the teleporting he does in Super, Hiki now does a dance that splits himself into 3 clones, 2 being fake clones. Hiki and the clones will begin to attack different positions quickly, with Hiki moving around to trick Doc. You have to both keep an eye out to dodge the real Hiki and know where they're coming from, while also not falling for the clones, or else Hiki himself will hit you hard. Despite all the tricks though, Hiki will eventually go down. Just like in the NES days, after a defeat in the major circuit, Bull has fought their way up to the world circuit to fight Doc. After their first fight, Bald Bull's loss apparently left him humiliated, as the fame that was theirs before was taken by Doc, and they were seen as a joke afterwards. This finally brings out the wild man rage in Bald Bull, as they fight their way right up to meet Doc and get a rematch. Bald Bull is no longer happy to fight with Doc, and instead is absolutely furious at them for ruining their career in their eyes, and wants only revenge against them. Bald Bull's fighting style has changed up quite a bit here, as those delays become closer to how they were in Wii, with more damage to them as well. They'll also throw some attacks together for some harsher combos as well. You'll also now get fewer hits whenever you dodge most of Bald Bull's moves, just to make them that much harder to bring down. They now also bring out their signature Bull Charge much more often, and this attack is much meaner now, as they will repeat the move till either Doc goes down or Doc can counter the charge. The player will be forced to learn how to counter the move in order to beat Bald Bull. The charge also gets a second upgrade now, as whenever he gets knocked down and gets up, he'll pull out a quick use of the charge to keep you on your toes. You only have to dodge this one once and you'll be safe. He'll block if you try to counter this one, but it will still stop the attack and give a free beatdown. Eventually, despite all that rage though, they'll go down and Doc can move on.
Nick Bruiser.
As the penultimate fighter, we'll have someone Doc heard about at the very start of the game, the other Bruiser brother, Nick Bruiser. Like Rick, Nick is getting a few changes just to make sure he feels different from his brother, though Nick is mostly just getting what he already had more strengthened. Nick is the one with actual experience between the two, being the second best boxer in the world. This gives Nick quite the intimidating aura, as he holds a similar vibe to Sandman, as this man doesn't have any wacky gimmicks or anything super weird. They're just a competent boxer. Nick's silent personality is amped up, as now this giant is completely mute, only giving subtle facial expressions, but mostly keeping his stone-cold glare at Doc. He keeps an intimidating presence with his fighting prowess. As a previous champion and super, he brings over a lot of that challenge. Nick has a no-nonsense fighting style with a combination of quick jabs, hooks with tricky timing and varying ways to dodge, and harsh uppercuts they can pull out. You have to be both quick and pay close attention to the timing to deal with him. He can also throw in some quick combos of hooks that can be tricky to dodge. Nick can also throw out the devastating bruiser drop that his brother tried and failed to use. Nick's version has much faster timing and will hurt a lot more if it connects. And as if that wasn't enough, Nick brings in a special kind of danger. If you punch too late on Nick and he blocks it, he will quickly counter and disable the use of that fist for a bit. This makes it so you can only get in one hit at a time till it heals. Nick forces the player to be very careful with their strikes, as failing the timing will leave them defenseless for a bit. But even with all this, Nick will still eventually go down, and Doc can move on to the champ.
Are you ready? 'Cause I'm gonna put on a show.
Acting as the contender champion of this game is Super Macho Man, back in his greater prime that earned him his fame. He has even more fans than he did in Wii, and has an even bigger ego about it. His backstory shows that his win against Nick won him massive media coverage, and he's been riding on that for his whole career since then. His look is pretty similar, though now he looks more like the age he says he is, and has a few more accessories like his sunglasses always being on, and wearing a fancy robe like the one we see in Wii. Macho makes himself look like royalty in the WVBA, and his attitude towards Doc reflects that, as he barely registers Doc being there, only caring about his adoring fans. All of that ego ain't just for show either, as Macho earned his way to the top. He brings in his main challenge of tricky timing, with his hooks and uppercuts. His fight would be similar to the one in Wii, just with a few new moves thrown into the mix to keep returning players on their toes. He also brings in his Super Macho clothesline, with the camera flash being up to make it a bit more of a challenge making it out. Cameras are also a major mechanic of Macho in this game, as he sometimes can throw out a quick camera flash from the audience, and when your vision returns, you'll have to react quickly to whatever attack he's sending out. Macho makes for a decent final challenge, but tricky punches to time that all hit like a truck if they connect. I wish I could say more on Macho, but they are a tricky fighter to really spice up too much. But we'll hopefully be able to do that more later. After taking down Macho Man, you've won, as you watch the end credits and see all the boxers you've beat. But any Punch-Out fan knows this shouldn't be the end, as returning from Wii is title defense. Rematches against every fighter with new gimmicks and way more difficult. These fights are going to be wild with their challenge, just like Wii was. One thing I do want to add is that after every title defense match, you'll get a special cutscene with the fighter showing where they're going, whether it be retiring, finding their character development, or moving into the place we see them at in Wii. These will all be small, but I want to add these small touches of story. But now, let's get to the fighters. For his title defense match, Gabby will become much more difficult, as after his first fight, he has begun to become a true laughing stock for his defeat, and it's finally got him fired up about boxing. He'll have a complete change to his demeanor and probably a simple palette swap. He will become much harder, not only due to faster punches and tricky delays like Glass Joe's title defense, but that joke that was his cheer will become a tricky thing to work around, as he will try to drag out the fight as long as it takes. The yay will now be used much more and be followed up with a couple punches instead of the free KO it had before. But he still isn't too tough to take down despite how much he wants to stay in the fight. He more so serves the same purpose as Glass Joe, just teaching the player that title defense will not be messing around. Upon defeat, Gabby will be absolutely furious, but be comforted outside the ring by his student Glass Joe, happy with how well Gabby fought. And Gabby will finally calm down as he heads out with his student to finally retire. For the next fight, Rick has spent some time training with his brother Nick, and through such has gained a bruised look to him, as his brother did not hold back in training. But through this, he's finally learned some new moves. His ego will still be there more than ever, as now he really does feel like he can take on Doc and win. His rage won't show at all during the later parts of the fights, as he's grown used to the hardship of boxing and now just laughs it off. This shows with him having much less stun time and being able to be punished less. He'll keep you on your toes much more than last time. His moves will be mostly the same, with weird delays to throw you off, and now at faster speeds. His large attacks like the Bruiser Drop will no longer have massive wind-ups, and instead will be something they can pull out often. Eventually, Rick goes down once more, but this time he has no problem with it, laughing as he falls down onto the mat. He'll have now found his own joy in boxing. Next up is Prince Hippo, having a major design change for his title defense. After his first loss to Doc and returning home, he's begun to be trained to be the proper king of Hippo Island, both with heavy boxing training and lots of eating. Though not to the extent we see in Wii and NES, as he's still much younger, Hippo will still be much larger and bring a much more grand crown to the ring. Hippo's fighting style will be majorly changed up. They will be a bit slower, but now their attacks will hit like a truck. And unlike Hippo in NES and Wii, they'll be able to attack in many different ways, with attacks from the side, jabs, and uppercuts for a much more well-rounded moveset. Hippo now will be harder to properly punish, as his guard will be excellent compared to last time, nearly unbreakable just like in NES and Wii. Their weakness will be similar, but not the exact same. For each attack, Hippo can randomly have his massive gob open, and Doc can counter before they throw the punch. If they manage, Hippo will recoil before adjusting their crown and rushing forward with a random attack with much less delay. This attack will be much messier and leave Hippo wide open to attack. It would end up feeling a lot like Don's fighting style, which works well due to his absence and being the middle point between the prince and the eventual king he'll become. He will have the same special move as before, but now if you counter each of them by hitting Hippo's mouth, the third hit will knock his crown off. This will leave Hippo enraged and make all their attacks faster and much deadlier. but each one will be messy and leave them wide open to counters. This gives an additional challenge with a lot of reward that players can take. Eventually, Hippo will go down after multiple KOs and fall out of the ring in classic style. After the fight, they'll look at a picture of their king while they're heading out, before looking to themselves in the mirror, and they'll nod, heading out to prepare for Wii and NES. And lastly, for the minor circuit, is General Kaiser, who is absolutely livid now. After Doc beat him in their bout, he became a laughingstock amongst his peers in the military, and now he is absolutely furious at Doc. Kaiser now has some rage problems when it comes to them, just having zero cool to almost the level of bald bull at times. His appearance gets a small change, as now he sports a full military cap just to flex his superiority to Doc. As for his fighting, his attacks will be much quicker and deal a ton of damage, and the blitz will be harder to predict and dodge. Just a classic tile defense power-up. Aside from his brand new special move he brings to the ring. That rage isn't just an act, and it will come into the fight, as any time he gets knocked down, he'll come back with a berserk mode. In this blind rage, he will attack with a rapid onslaught that cannot be interrupted, and each attack will deal massive damage. But weathering the storm will always reward you with a super long beatdown. Despite all his fury, Kaiser will still go down, and after the fight, an officer will approach him and rip away one of his medals and take their military cap. Kaiser will be distraught and look at Doc with a crazy look and yell, starting his downward spiral to where he is in Wii. Moving into the major circuit, we once again meet up with Dragon Chan. After fighting Doc, Chan went on a personal odyssey to find the secrets of their martial arts. After a long journey, they finally found a scroll with all the secrets to become a master. Now returning to the ring, Dragon Chan now puts up even more of a persona of being a wise master, but with a horrible air of smugness to it. You can easily tell that Chan has learned nothing from his journey, other than those fancy new moves. He'll have a simple palette swap and a fancy new headband. His fighting style will be changed up a bit, as along with his usual punches being faster and hitting harder, he now throws more kicks into the mix as regular moves. These can have weird timings and be tricky to figure out how to dodge. Chan's big kicks will also be spiced up a bit. The flurry of kicks will now be quickly telegraphed before, and you just have to try to catch what sides they were, and then dodge the onslaught. The instant KO kick also gets a small boost, with a small uppercut afterwards. As one final gimmick to the fight, on any round where Chan would either get KO'd or TKO'd, they will enter a complete rage mode, where their whole wise persona breaks and their brash hot-headedness shows. In this mode, he will do non-stop instant KO kicks without any pause for you to get a direct hit in. Instead, this becomes a terrifying challenge, where you have to interrupt the kick, which is a previous way to instantly take them down, but super tough to pull off. And you have to do this in order to bring them down for the final KO. After the fight, Chan will be absolutely livid and tear off their headband and belt before tearing apart that scroll they got. They jump out of the ring, never to return to boxing. Next is Occa, having taken some time to return to the Outback to train, and they found a perfect sparring partner in that time. They trained alongside a kangaroo with boxing gloves, and managed to pick up the mean kick from them, along with just growing tougher. Personality-wise, they've grown even more unhinged, but still with the positive attitude they had before, and eager to take Doc down finally. Akka doesn't have many changes for their tile defense match, other than buffing their defense with you needing to hit just the right point on 3 attacks before their defense is blown open, making them a bit harder to just get the damage in on them. Their attacks are mostly just faster and hit harder, now along with some delays being thrown in to make them a bit less predictable. Their boomerang returns with a new timing making it trickier, but they bring along a second special move too, the kick. This is a very quick attack they can throw in whenever you counter them. They'll back up onto the ropes before coming forward with a kangaroo kick. You just have to dodge this heavy attack, and it makes getting a defense open even more tricky and dangerous. But after a long fight, eventually Akka will go down. After the fight, they'll put down the hat and boomerang before heading off to return to the Outback, leaving the WVBA for good. Next is Texas Red back at it again. After going back to their old bounty hunting ways to train, they've really improved their skills and picked up a new tool that'll finally turn the tables against Doc. A gun! Okay, not really, it's just a pop gun, but still. Red brings this new pop revolver to the ring, ready to take Doc on. Their cheerful demeanor is gone, as they fully embody the cool Western hero, and dress in all black with a large belt buckle now. For the fight itself, Red is even faster with their tells, and forces a player to really step up their game if they want to stay alive. They also bring in a few delays just to keep the player on their toes, and on top of that, their lasso move is also trickier, with them now bringing 2 lassos with them, so you can't afford to be reckless with your dodges anymore. And finally, that gun isn't just for show, as it makes for a tricky new move for them. Red will step back at some point in the fight, and the timer will stop, and the two of you will stand at a draw. After a random amount of time, Red will come forward super quick and fire the pop gun for an instant down. You have 2 options for how to counter their duel. You can either dodge to the side and get a small beatdown, or you can take a risk and try to hit them first when they draw. The window to hit them is tiny, so it's a massive risk to go for this move, but it will reward you with an instant down on them. Eventually, Red will go down, and angrily try to draw their pop gun to take out Doc outside the WVBA. But before that, a poster falls out of their pocket, and they finally notice a bit that was folded, and they are realizing the poster they first saw didn't say wanted. It said boxers wanted. It was just an ad to join the WVBA. With Doc looking at them disappointed, they laugh nervously before jumping out of the ring onto a horse to ride off, never to return to boxing. Since Ball Bull 1 is no longer here, we move straight into Masked Muscle. After being beaten out of the spotlight by Doc, they return to wrestling for a bit, as you see them doing crazy jump moves and bouncing off the ropes. They hold their champ belt as they see a poster of Doc and smile. Masked Muscle returns with a different mask color and now wears their belt from wrestling. Masked Muscle's usual antagonistic behavior is cranked up to 11 now, as they've gone a little crazy from their grudge against Doc and the WVBA. They will yell and scream for Doc to just go down already and to give up. But the biggest place where Muscle gets changed up is in their moves, as they get even more illegal. Their regular moves are now spiced up to be harsh combos. The punches will be followed with quick elbow drops, and their faster moves will be chained together almost like an easier Honda Rush. They've also got new heavy moves, as after being knocked down, they'll jump onto the ropes and dive down at Doc, with either an attack like the Hippo Squeeze or a downward elbow drop. These attacks will deal massive damage as they hit, so you can't get distracted if you take him down. His specials are also buffed up a bit. The flurry of punches from their spit is even harsher now with the combos, and the reward for getting through it is gone. This is a deadly punishment you want to avoid now, and they'll throw it out when you least expect it. Their headbutt is now a much bigger move, as they'll push back against the ropes like Aaron Ryan and rush forward with a headbutt. But that's not the end, as after this, the camera will whip around as they sail past Doc and bounce against the other ropes, and come for a second headbutt. This disorienting attack can repeat several times before they get dizzy and you get to just wail on them till they go down. Eventually, Doc will manage to take him down a second time, and Muscle will be absolutely furious. They'll yell to the cheering fans as they hold up their belt, screaming how they're the real best here, before they storm off and leave the WVBA for good. Next up to start the world circuit is Hoi Korlo. After their loss, Corlew took some time to train their mind, with deep meditation around the world, and eventually this led to them awakening something inside themselves. This is immediately seen with them floating into the ring with their staff, because the WBBA just doesn't have enough magic cheating. Corlew's calm personality remains the same, and their small bit of cheekiness is completely gone. Now it's as if they don't even register the fight around them at all. Hoy will get a new palette for his robes, and also get various bracelets and necklaces to match his spiritual style now. As for his fighting in the ring, that magic makes Corlew even more dangerous than he was before, as he's even quicker with his timings thanks to teleportation. And also thanks to this magic, the possibility of the usual counterpunch strategy is gone, as any attempt to hit him will instead have him teleport to give another quick jab. Now, much like Aaron Ryan's fight, you have to beat Corlew to his punches in order to stand any kind of chance. But Corlew isn't done being an absolute pain, because after your counter punches will usually be a quick random attack you have to be ready for. His special moves also get a boost thanks to his use of magic. The usual spin is now much faster, and also goes several times before being followed up with a staff hook. But his combo move gets real tricky, as the telegraph becomes much faster with Corlew teleporting around before delivering the attacks. These attacks cannot give counter-punch opportunities aside from punching Corlew while he spins, but now you have to bounce him back and forth 3 times before you get your beat down. But even with the magic, you can bring Corlew down, and after the fight, Corlew will stand back up and simply smile before teleporting away. He's happy Doc overcame the challenge, and now they are finally retiring. Next up is Hiki, who after losing to Doc had quite the life change. As while their boxing career was in shambles, they found a new career as a beauty star. Now Hiki is an absolutely fabulous idol, with the audience constantly cheering for them and taking pictures. This gives Hiki a little bit of an ego, but their generally kind and nice personality stays mostly the same. They get a tiny makeover, with their makeup becoming even more wild, and their hair being completely pink now. In the ring, Hiki is much more like themselves, as their moves now all work around either dancing or their modeling, almost like a mix between Disco Kid and Macho Man. Their attacks will now have much different timings to them, weird delays from posing, and all hit much harder. Hiki is a fighter who doesn't require the best reaction time, but is pretty hard to get a feel for. Their special moves also get some major upgrades as well. Their telegraph move is now much faster, and each hair move now gets an extra swing on them to be a bit tougher to dodge. Their Mirage Dance is what gets a really unique upgrade though, as now between attacks, the fans take photos with flash, which obscures Hiki moving amongst the clones, so when Vision comes back, you have very little time to notice which is the real Hiki before they begin attacking. After the fight, Hiki will be disappointed by their loss, before they see all their fans and several people trying to hand him contracts. Hiki will head off with these fans as they throw away their boxing gloves, now having a new passion for beauty. As you move up, you'll notice something interesting in that Bald Bull is missing, with Nick Bruiser in their spot looking a little beat up. It's pretty easy to see what happened, but that's something to worry about later. Nick Bruiser's tile defense is simpler compared to some of the others. After his loss against Doc, he simply spent that time training as hard as he could, and now has come back just stronger. No weird gimmicks here, just a good boxer made even better. His punches are now much faster and hit like a truck if they connect. The window for hitting him is tighter, so you have to be extra sure to get it right, or you're gonna be left defenseless against him. Nick will have all his usual moves, along with a special addition that comes in whenever Nick is close to going down. Inherited from Mike Tyson and Sandman are the lightning-fast wink punches, and he'll do these whenever he can in the final rounds. But other than that, no new changes to Nick Bruiser. After the fight, Nick will get up slowly and look very hurt by his loss, before looking out to see his brother in the audience, still cheering him on. The two head out, with Rick laughing and talking about how well he fought, and Nick's stone-cold face will finally break to smile. And after the older Bruiser brother, you find your next opponent is a beat-up Macho Man, which leaves no doubts about who your final opponent will be. But before that, you still have to deal with Super Macho Man, who, after the defeat against Doc and this new final opponent, has begun to fight desperately to keep his fame and adoration through any means possible. Macho is now similar to his Wii tile defense in terms of personality, with him just having a lot more rage now towards Doc, and also always being as flashy as possible to keep the audience loving him. Now his sunglasses are even flashier, and he's decked himself out with plenty of jewelry. Macho Man is pretty similar to his contender fight, with very tricky timing and heavy-hitting punches. Macho will now also combo together plenty of his moves into harder patterns with less reward for dodging them. The audience also now flashes their cameras more often, and also have a move where they will do this rapidly and make a flurry of blows Doc needs to react quickly to. But the one move that really gets an upgrade is the Super Macho Clothesline, as now the audience will not stop taking pictures, so the screen will be completely white for all 3 spins. The only way to survive this attack is to get the rhythm of the spins, which has helped a bit as Macho will always give a voice line before they begin the spin. But if Doc can master that clothesline, they can send Macho Man down. After the fight, the spotlights around Macho will slowly turn off, to signify that his time in this glory is somewhat over, and he can only ride the dwindling fame from this. And after that fight, they can move on to their final challenge with their ultimate rival, Bald Bull. After their previous defeat, they have become furious at Doc for taking the championship that should have been theirs, and for humiliating them with crushing defeats. All Bald Bull wants to do now is just destroy Doc so they can become the feared boxer they once were, and finally claim their ultimate prize. Bald Bull is absolutely livid in this final fight, being even more angry than their appearance in Wii. They are a complete lunatic for this final bout, and seem like they want to actually murder Doc at this point. Appearance-wise, they simply have a palette swap to their tile defense look in Wii. Bald Bull gets the usual tile defense upgrades, with faster and stronger attacks, plus some delays to shake things up. But Bull doesn't just get what he had before, as in order to be a true test of the player's skills, he takes some of the trickier moves from other fighters. Nothing that wouldn't make sense, like Corlo's staff stuff, Red's gun, or Hiki's dancing, but he does get devastating new moves, like his own clothesline, an elbow drop, quick flurries of blows, and possibly even something to heal. Bald Bull has learned from his previous matches, and brings everything you had to fight against into one package. But Bald Bull's final fight isn't just gonna be a rehash, as Bull still brings his signature Bull Charge to the ring in 2 forms like before. The first is the faster ones, that take half health and cannot be countered. He'll do these upon getting up, and now can sometimes just pull them out at random. And then there's his bigger Bull Charge that will knock you down instantly, that now goes faster, and countering it will not take him down. The reason for this is that he now has the gimmick of his tile defense from Wii, only being able to be knocked down by a star punch. This already made for a unique challenge, but combining it with the other things Bull now brings to the ring should make for a tough-as-nails final boss. And, just to add some flair to finally bringing on the Bull, whenever Bull is one knockdown away from KO or TKO, he'll enter a rage mode just like Sandman does in his tile defense. Instead of wink punches, he'll throw a mixture of hard-to-dodge combos and the signature Bull Charge. But Bald Bull's is different, as this rage now gives him even greater knockdown immunity, as he'll now only go down from a 3-star punch. This seems impossible, but his rage opens him up to this, as you can gain a star from either surviving his combo and getting a hit in, or by countering the bull charge. You simply have to endure 3 of these, and then you can finally send Bald Bull down. If this seems like too much, it probably is, but I really just want this fight to be even harder than Sandman Tower Defense, and a final hurrah for one of the biggest faces in Punch-Out history. Finally, Bald Bull will go down, and Doc will have defended their title as one of the greatest boxers of all time. Bald Bull will be left screaming in rage as cameras flash on him and Doc leaving the ring. Bull promises to get revenge on Doc somehow eventually. This will set up the weird mentioning of Doc and Wii, and why Bull is so filled with rage for boxing and the press. And with that, you be in this new Punch-Out game. Well, not quite, as from Wii will also be returning a Last Stand mode. Just random fights from any boxer you fought. 3 losses, and Doc will retire as a boxer. This mode would probably feature some fun crossover character like K. Rool or possibly someone else. But this video is running long, so I'll leave that for your imagination. But, after finally retiring, it shows the familiar training grounds from Wii, as we see one of the walls lined with trophies and pictures from Doc's boxing career, as it fades to him telling a story of all this to Little Mac who's training. The game would end on Doc saying that he believes Mac could reach an even greater place in boxing history than even him, and then would ask Mac if he's ready for his first fight, before rolling the credits. I would also like to add small cutscenes to the credits of some of the boxers now interacting with each other, such as Dragon Chan now meditating with Corlo, before needing to just break something due to their natural rage. Tahiki taking photo shoots with Macho Man, to just the Bruiser brothers training together. Just nice scenes to make for a goodbye to some of these characters. And all of this would be before transitioning to a final scene of Doc running, that fades into the iconic scene of Mac running behind Doc on the bike. And that's really all for this fun idea of a Punch-Out sequel. There would probably be bonus content like the exhibition challenges and such, but getting into those would be hell for me. I just really wanted to share the ideas I had, and hopefully y'all enjoyed listening to me ramble about them for God knows how long. I absolutely love the Punch-Out series, and every single character from it. I really hope Nintendo eventually gives this franchise another entry, with more fighters from the series given a modern reimagining, and just more of the amazing punching action we know. It probably is never going to happen anytime soon, but hey, I can dream. But that's all for now. See y'all in the next video, wherever that takes us.